everyone, welcome to another installment of my YouTube channel. Today I'm just having a look at various multimeters. The reason being is I have this meter at home, and this is one of my backup bench meters in my workshop. But what I'm thinking is, for the few little odd jobs that I do at home, this little guy here might be enough. But is it really? I mean, it does your volts DC, volts AC, ohms, diode test, continuity, and then of course amps, which is for the majority what I would do at home. I'm not going to get into any intensive testing unless I'm in my workshop anyway. But I'm busy doing a bit of a DC voltage test over here, and so far I'm not too impressed. I mean, as I go through the voltage ranges over here, let's go to around 9 volts, just for example. Okay, well let's just stop there. 9.362 volts. I know this was the most accurate. I've referenced it to my flukes and stuff. 9.38 volts. Close. Close enough to be happy. But this, 9.22 volts. What happened there? These two meters are the same make. Look, I know these guys here are designed more for your electricians for reference voltage checks and stuff. They're not dead accurate. But 9.22 but 9.38. I mean, if I go to 13.8 volts, which is one of my common test voltages. There we go, 13.85, 13.88, 13.65. If I'm going to reference on that meter and I'm going to go to 13.8, we'll be running at roughly 14 volts. Okay, so DC voltage check, not too impressed with this little guy over here, but let's take a little bit further look at AC voltage test. So yeah, we've got it hooked up to my Variac. At the moment I've just got the Brayman connected for a reference voltage. As you can see, we're running, let's just set a voltage. Let's go for around 50 volts AC. There we go, that's pretty close. 50 volts AC. Alright, so let's get the Brayman out of the way. Let's check this middle major tech. Now we're getting our 50 volts AC. It's pretty accurate. And lastly, our other clamp major tech meter. And we're getting 50.1. So for AC measurements, she's a little bit better than for DC measurements. Like I said, I think the meter's designed more for electrical purposes. Let's do some resistance tests, diode tests, that sort of thing, and let's see if it will work out alright. Okay, so what we've done here for reference sake is we've got our 10 ohms. I'm going to just move those leads from meter to meter, and let's see what sort of resistances. As you could see, we had 10 ohms on that meter. Waiting for it to settle. Going about 10. And then on the last meter, quite slow to measure up, but we're also showing about 10.2 ohms. 10.1, 10.2. So these two for resistances are more or less the same. For AC voltages, this one is closer. For DC voltages, this one is a lot closer. This one's a little bit off. Wait, there we go, 10 ohms. It's settled on 10 ohms. So for resistance measurements, they're all pretty much on par. This one obviously is more accurate. That one's a bit slower, but they do get the job done. Let's have a look now at continuity. Okay, we're on diode test. Testing a standard NPN diode. Silicon 0.527. Let's move that across. This is more for reference, 578 difference, but you can still get the gist of it, which is fine. 520. Here 520 is a little bit closer to my reference meter, the Bremen 528, so not too bad there for this little clamp meter. Something I've done over here now to get a bit of reference is 13.8. My power supply is preset to 14 volts, which I know is accurate. And this meter is showing 20 millivolts under. And if I come through onto my Bremen, it should show a very solid 14 volts. What I'm doing is I'm using the same leads to avoid any sort of lead resistance errors or stuff like that. So as you can see, it is 14 volts as per the power supply, and this meter is reading 20 millivolts down. So what I'm going to do now is see if there's a way that I can adjust this thing, because DC voltage to me is quite important. But before I do that, I'm just going to do a few more reference voltage checks at different levels on these two to see if it's a specific level or overall 20 millivolts under. I'll be back in a flash. Okay, so the results are in. Is this little clamp meter good enough for my DC measurements at home, or when working on my little electronics bench at home? No. For most parts, yes. Most people would be quite happy with the results read from this meter, and it is good enough to get most jobs done. But this meter excels as an AC clamp meter, nothing else really. It's a great little meter for around the house tinkering, checks to see if there's power, etc. But for electronics work, it is an absolute disaster. I would highly recommend rather going for something like the MT1880 or even some of the other cheaper meters over this meter over here. So my results, is it good enough? No, it's not good enough as an electronics meter, so I'm going to have to look at investing in another meter for home use. And we shall see how that works out. Until next time, thanks for watching, guys. And I suppose you could call this a brief review of the Majortech MT720 or 720 AC clamp meter multimeter. Cheers for now.